Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you're well. This is Ajmal Masroor live, and today we're going to be discussing something interesting. It's called organ donation and transplantation according to Islam. Is it something that you're familiar with? And if you're not, it is a good show, and it is a show that you should keep your eyes and your minds and your ears, especially your eyes, your ears, sharply focused on our screen, on your screen rather. We are here discussing organ donation and transplantation, especially at the back of what's happened lately, as you probably saw on yesterday's news and day before, but more yesterday's news, that in America they successfully, yet again, have given a human being a pig's heart, but a modified pig's heart, genetically modified pig's heart. We will not go into the details of the technicalities of it, but my son and my daughter, who are watching the program with me, they looked at me and said, "Daddy, is it halal?" And I told them, "Please tell me, why should it be haram?" Oh, first is pig's heart. That's what they said. So I said to them, well, eating pig meat is haram, yes, but where does it say you can't use a pig's heart? They said, "Oh, okay, well, let's think." And I told them, go and think and research. So I've given them the homework to go and find out by reading a bit more, doing a bit more research. It's like a school project for them. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you make of organ donation and transplantation? Do you think it is acceptable? Do you think it's halal? Do you think it's allowed? What are the parameters of, if it's halal, what are the parameters? If it's not halal, what are the parameters? What do we do? How do we operate? We'll also be discussing the medical parameters and the ethics that govern organ transplantation and organ donation. Inshallah, together today with two amazing guests. We're very lucky and very fortunate to have with us Dr. Zaki Rizwana Anwar, who is a medical doctor and columnist. And we have also been joined online, all the way from up north. I won't give his exact address. Mufti Mohammed Zubair, but Islam, an Imam, a jury consultant, as well as a hospital chaplain, and a very well-known figure in the area of organ donation and transplantation. Let me welcome both of my guests. Firstly, Dr. Zaki Rizwana, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for joining us. And Mufti Mohammed Zubair, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and all your viewers, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair for joining us. Let's go straight into this conversation. And I'm going to start with you, Mufti Mohammed Zubair, with the very straightforward question. Is it allowed or is it not allowed? That is the question that we are posing to you today, for Muslims to give donations of their organs and for Muslims to receive transplantation of organs. Obviously, I don't want you to give a detailed answer yet, just a quick yes or no answer, just so that we can begin to unpack the conversation. Please go ahead.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sheikh Ajmal, you know that when you ask an Imam a simple question, you don't get a simple answer. The answer is, it depends.
So tell me, what does it depend on?
Okay. There is one discussion about the permissibility of organ donation per se. And my conclusion is that it is permissible in principle. However, then it comes to taking an organ from a live donor, which I deem to be permissible, and then taking an organ from somebody who has passed away and has reached a point where they can no longer be revived. I also consider that to be permissible. However, if they can still be revived, and as far as I am concerned, the ruh, the spirit, soul has not left the body, from then we cannot take the organs.
So if the person can be revived, and if the organ is not going to damage that person's living, why can it not be taken?
Okay. First of all, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He has created us, He has created everything within our body for a purpose. Okay. Allah has given us two kidneys, and we may be able to survive without a kidney, without one kidney, but ultimately that second kidney is also there for a purpose. And that is when Allah knows best, but one of the reasons is that when the function of one kidney is reduced, then the other makes up for it. So everything within our body is there for a purpose. So now if you are going to take an organ from somebody who is, for example, on the ventilator but has not yet passed away, Okay, and you are taking something vital from them. By taking that from them, you can contribute to their death as well.
Okay, well, let's ask that to a medical doctor to see if that is actually medically sound as an opinion. Theologically, that's an opinion that we must respect as a theologian, but as a medical doctor, can a person survive with one of his or her kidney quite healthy and relatively well?
Yeah, but before saying that, I think what he was trying to say is, if there's a circulatory death, I mean, this is irreversible, you can't, you are dead already. In that case, you can take the organ. But if it is a neurological death, your brain is not working, but your internal organs, you have the blood supply. In that case, at that point, you can get better or whatever. So in that case, you have to, before you take the organ, you have to switch off the machine to see that whether it's a circulatory death or not. If it is a circulatory death, that means it's irreversible. So just to clarification, I think he is trying to mention the same, this one. And you said that if, from my experience, I have seen, I met someone in, with my affiliation in Faith and Belief Forum. I saw two persons, they have given one kidney, and what happened was, is medical science, what happened is the other kidney, it becomes enlarged, and it happens with liver as well. I have seen many living donor. We are talking about after death or living donor. The living donor, I've seen one of the journalists, his mom gave the part of the liver, and it grows up again, so you can survive as a normal. But that will depend upon the condition. If it is a living donor, then it will depend upon the condition of the health of the person, the donor. But I have seen many donors who has given one kidney, part of liver, and they are surviving well.
Or a person may have been born with one kidney and they have survived.
If a person is born with one kidney, you can't give.
No, I know. What I'm saying is the person can still survive and pretty healthy. I'll give you a good example, Mufti Zubair. I just want to get Mufti Zubair into this conversation. One example of an MP in the parliament. Actually, under Labour government, he was the health minister, Frank Dobson.
Yeah.
He lived with one kidney all his life. So health-wise and social contribution was not impacted by lack of a kidney. But it's an important distinction, and I want to come back to you on this. So Islamically speaking, Mufti Zubair, you're saying a person who is alive, for example, myself, I'm alive, alhamdulillah. If all my organs are working, if I want to give one of my organs to somebody while I'm alive, as long as it doesn't cause my body to be injurious permanently, or it does not cause me death, I'm allowed to give an organ to somebody. Just to clarify that, is that what you said initially?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. So any part of my body I can give as long as it doesn't cause me death.
Cause you death or significant harm.
Okay.
You know, there are only certain organs that you will able, or certain parts of the body that you will be able to donate without having a detrimental effect to yourself. One of them tends to be the kidney.
Okay.
Or when we say it's not detrimental, yes, there is. Obviously, Allah has given us two kidneys for a reason. Okay, and so there is less function with only one kidney. And so I'll give you an example of our communities. We tend to suffer from diabetes. It's a common problem within our communities. The kidneys are affected. So you are potentially looking at donating whilst tomorrow you may be, requiring the use of a kidney yourself. So it's not as simple as a yes or no. There's a matter of in principle, and then after that, the health of the individual as to whether it will impact or not has to be considered.
Of course. And also, I am assuming, Dr. Rizwana, when, as a medical doctor, I'm not saying you do, but those doctors who are involved in transplantation, they will have to assess my health before they can accept my donation.
Definitely. I don't know whether you have come across this. There's a big story in BBC. There's a Jew person, his son, he was 21.
Okay.
He's affiliated with the Belief and Faith Forum, so that's how I know. And it was a big story in BBC. His son, he was, I think when he donated it, he was like 23, 24, and he donated part of his liver. And his dad is doing fine, son is doing fine. So and they had to go through extensive investigations. And one thing here I think is worth mentioning, that it matches better if someone from the family member or from the same community like I'm not saying that you can't take the white people, but genetically we are different. So that's why it matters best if someone from family member or someone from the same ethnic background.
Medically speaking, which organs can you give in donation if you are giving a donation?
After death.
After death?
After death. For example, me, heart, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, pancreas, liver, and also the tissues.
You can give after death?
After death.
But within a particular period of time?
Of
because
course,
you don't want those organs to also be deprived of oxygen and they die very quickly.
Yes, this is a very good point. Because the thing is, why we need so many people to be on the register? Because not everybody will be eligible to give any organ.
Yes,
because if you die, if you don't die in hospital, it won't be possible in the UK. It won't be possible to take your organ, because before the transplantation, you need a very good blood supply in the organ. So if you hospital, like for example, if 100 people are on the list, maybe 4 or 5 will be eligible to donate.
So apart from these organs that you've given, that you're allowed to give, or you can give medically speaking, which organs can you give when you're alive and not die?
1 kidney.
You can give 1 kidney?
1 kidney, part of liver. That's all.
That's it?
That's it.
You can't give your cornea?
You can't see. I mean,
you'll become blind, so therefore, of course, it will affect you. So only liver, part of the liver.
Did I mention the cornea?
You didn't before?
Yeah, cornea and the other organs.
Oh, I see. So after death, you can give cornea as well. Okay. So while you're alive, you can only give 1 kidney and part of your liver.
Part of liver.
Okay. Now, Mufti Zubair, now let's go to the second question which I wanted to ask, and that came as a result of what you said earlier on. So if the person has passed away, does your, in your opinion, do you believe that that person can give all of the listed parts of their body in donation as a doctor here has given us?
Okay. Now, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, my position on this, and it's something that is shared by academics, Western academics as well, actually, is that when, which is known as cadaveric death, or cadaveric donation, or donation after death, is when the patient has actually died, and we are confident we have the probability of that the soul has left the body. From that point in time, then you can use any of the organs mentioned above.
Now, but how do you determine? This is the contention, isn't it? How do you determine when the soul has actually left the body conclusively?
Right. I think one thing we should be able to agree that if somebody has a cardiac arrest, for example, and through CPR you are able to revive that person and bring them back to life again, just use simple terminology, you should not be able to take an organ from that particular individual, because that individual has not passed away yet. When we say bring him back alive, you are not actually bringing him back alive, you are keeping alive someone who is still alive.
They did not die in the first place.
They did not die, okay? So if that is the premise, that if you cannot revive this person, if you can revive this person, then this person is not dead. And if you cannot revive this person, that person is maybe considered to be dead and you can take the organs, okay?
But there is a contention in at what point do you decide this person is actually dead? Whether you can revive this person or not is one, but how do you determine if this person is dead, Islamically speaking?
Okay, Islamically speaking, we know that traditionally the jurists have mentioned experiential sort of signs of how to define when somebody is dead, okay? And those are not definitive in themselves. They give you an indication, okay? And the position amongst all the schools is that unless you are certain, you cannot consider that this person has died, you cannot consider that person to be dead. In fact, in some of the schools like the Maliki school, etc., if somebody passes away, you are uncertain, then you will, to the extent you will let that body start to spoil before you actually say that the person is dead, so that you are sure that this person is dead, okay? Now, how do we define death is a controversial subject in itself. how we define death in the UK is different to how death is defined in America, for example. Okay, and in Europe as well.
But let's take the UK example and let's compare that with the Islamic definition so that we can understand. If Mufti Zubair, if you can focus on the Islamic definition of death, you've given some of the symbols or some of the signs. But is there any other that defines a person's death Islamically?
Okay, the definition of death is departure of the soul from the body. Okay, that's the definition of death. Infikak al-ruh and al-jasad. So that's the definition of death. Now, how do you determine that has happened? That is a metaphysical thing that you can't actually visualize the exact point. You will have signs of it. Okay, and currently the jurists, when they discuss this in international forums like Islamic Fiqh Academy of Jeddah and Mecca and in India, etc., one thing they require is that whatever process, if the person, for example, has a cardiac arrest, it must be irreversible. If the person has brain stem or brain death or brain damage to the brain, the person, it must be a case that it cannot be reversed. Okay, and so that is where the contention within UK practice lies.
Okay, let's get Let's get Dr. Zaki to say a few words in between that, Mufti Zubair. At what point do you medically consider a person to be dead?
Yeah, there are two types of death we can talk about. One is the neurological death.
Yes.
That means your brain is not functioning, but you still have circulation in blood.
Assisted circulation or unassisted circulation?
Unassisted.
I see. So the person's brain is dead, but the body is still carrying on.
Most probably that person is under ICU, under ventilator or whatever.
Was it then assisted?
Yeah, yes, yeah. But the heart and lungs there. But that is the main thing, that in hospital setting you can say that if the ventilator is taken off, when you are out of the ventilator, and then if the doctor can say that this is circulatory death, you don't have any circulation within your hearts and lungs, then it's irreversible.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. But the thing is, if you die at home, probably this is difficult to say, but anyway, if you die at home, you won't be able to donate.
Yes. No, but it is important here.
In the UK, some countries there are.
It's important here, Dr. Zaki, because if, for example, the modern machines were not invented, and if I was lying in the hospital, and my body organs were not functioning, my brain was not working, I'll be pronounced dead.
Yes.
But by the invention of modern machine, my body organs could be kept alive by the fact that there is a ventilator providing and circulating oxygen in my body. But that does not mean I'm not dead. I could have died a while back.
Yes, but if you're in the ventilator, some people they are on ventilator for weeks. And then they come back, months, yeah, they can come back. So you can't say it's a circulatory death. That's the main thing here.
So how do you know whether to switch the machine off or not switch the machine off? It's a gamble.
No, it's not. You can see the ECG and everything in the machine. You can
so as soon as you take it off, as soon as you switch the machine off, if the heart is no longer functioning,
that means it's a circulatory death.
But if the heart continues, then this person is alive.
That person is neurological death, but not circulatory death.
Okay, now over to you, Mufti Zubair. What do you do under such circumstances? Machine has been switched off, the person's heart is beating, body is circulating, but the brain is dead.
Okay, there's two things here.
Okay.
Let me take you back a little. When I wrote a fatwa this in 2019, I have discussed all of this in this whole idea. And I brought in what the Western academics have said on this as well. Okay. And so the issue is, in UK, the protocol is 5 minutes after we see the line go flat, asystole, the line goes flat on the screen, and we see that this person is pronounced dead. 5 minutes after that, they can start to take the organs. Okay. Now, 5 minutes is not sufficient for a person to not be revived. Okay, that person can still be revived. Okay, and so there is a discussion amongst the academics about permanence and irreversibility.
Right.
And there's a paper on this by Dr. Dale Gardner, who's somebody who I closely liaise with, and their argument is that if you are not going to do anything to this person anyway, you're not going to reverse the process, then that person is as good as, that person is dead. And so that has been challenged by others, saying, well, it's not dead, it's as good as dead maybe, but not dead. Because you can at this point still revive that person, but you're choosing not to. But their argument is permanence. So there is a bit of a dispute there. The question, okay, how long do you wait? Nobody has sussed that out as yet.
So how do you know if the person is alive or dead? My question is still unanswered. If the machine is switched off and the person is body circulating, brain is not functioning, the person is alive, right?
Okay. If there is spontaneous circulation, meaning that the person's blood is flowing around the body, the person is breathing, and the heart is beating, then yes, this is what is known as a persistent vegetative state. That this person has no cognition, this person has no understanding, no emotion, but the vegetative parts of the person, the function of the body are. So what you are mentioning, that is a vegetative state, and that is not part of our discussion.
But that person is still alive if that person is in that vegetative state.
Yeah, it's alive, and you have many people like that on the ventilator, and that kind of person will digest food. That kind of person will even gestate children. If somebody is pregnant, they will deliver the baby, etc. All these things will happen. The other function of the body will continue. Just that person doesn't have consciousness. Okay, and the reason they don't have consciousness is that the brain stem is damaged. The rest of the brain, the cortex, etc., maybe still not be damaged, but the brain stem is damaged, and so they lose consciousness. But that doesn't mean they lose the function of the heart and the lungs. But that is not what we are discussing.
I know, we're not discussing that, but the reason why I'm clarifying that is to establish at what point can we actually either take organs, if we are going to do that, and if this person is alive and their relatives give consent to organ donations, would that be allowed?
Okay. Now, as the person is alive.
Yes. In this vegetative state, the person is in this vegetative state. The relatives say, okay, take one of the kidneys. No, you can do that. Is that allowed?
Personally, what I would say is that somebody who is in a vegetative state, you can only act on their behalf what is for their benefit. Okay, you can only advocate on their behalf for something that will benefit them, not what will benefit others. So by giving a kidney away to someone else doesn't benefit the patient, doesn't benefit the person who is in a vegetative state.
But it doesn't harm the patient either.
That's the point. Is you can only do something on somebody's behalf who doesn't have mental capacity themselves that will benefit them. I will give you an example in the fiqh that when it comes to fiqh, you cannot give a gift on somebody's behalf who is a minor, for example, or somebody who is insane, who doesn't have capacity. You can, because that doesn't in this will benefit them. Okay, you
no,
can't.
But there is a difference here, Mufti Zubair. There's a question here that arises from what you've described, and that is, if the person, for example, went into a vegetative state and has a son or a daughter who is alive and young and could benefit from one of the donations, either of part of the liver or kidney, if the mother or the father who is in a vegetative state was given, or if the parents or adults were to make that decision, this child could live on. Why wouldn't that be allowed, even though the person is not consenting, but it is this person's own son or daughter, or maybe somebody else who is blood relative?
Because it's not in the interest of the patient. It has to be the interest of the patient. It doesn't benefit them in this world.
Okay, let's ask that question to Dr. Zaki, and then we'll go to a
on
break.
Their behalf.
Dr. Zaki, does that harm the patient?
If a person is neurologically dead, usually they, if the machines are switched off, and if they don't survive for long, half an hour, whatever, even less, because you have to remember that if you want to transplant the organ, it has to be done within a couple of hours, because you need to look for who are the recipient and you do all the matchings and everything. So to get the confirmation, you can't leave the body like hours and hours to say that this is a circulatory death. So that is one thing. And one thing I would like to say that, in 2020, in April, there was a opt-out new England
law. Correct,
law.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, the little girl Care who passed away. I think that was, as far as I can remember, that was neurological death. And the parents gave the consent, because the organ donation people asked that, do you consider that? And they said that Yes, because the guard was very bubbly type, and parents thought that okay, if she was alive, she would have said that the same. She would like to help. So that's why she gave the organs to Max and other three people.
Thank you. I'm going to take a quick break. Mufti Zubair, thank you very much. Stay there, don't go anywhere. Dr. Zaki, stay here with us, don't go anywhere. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching our program, don't go anywhere. If you've got any questions, we're going to be taking questions, of course, straight after the break. But we're going to also be unpacking some of the myths that prevail in our community around organ donation and transplantation. Don't go too far away. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about organ donation today. Organ donation is going on, or the organ donation discussion, as well as about transplantation discussion we're doing here in this program live. Inshallah, we'll be asking our scholars good questions, our doctor these very pertinent questions, and you have an opportunity to raise any question you have around the topic of organ donation and organ transplantation. So let's go straight into some of the myths. The biggest myth that I come across, and this is to both of our guests here, and that is if you die with your organ missing, on the day of judgment you will end up going to heaven, if you do go to heaven, with an organ missing. How is that even possible? Mufti Zubair, what do you say to people who say that we should not donate an organ because we will be raised on the day of judgment with an organ missing, and we don't want that? We can't hear you, Mufti Saab. Please see if
can you not hear me?
We can hear you now. Carry on.
Okay. What I would say is you should compare that with those people that die in the battlefield and are martyrs and have lost their limbs. What happens to them? Okay. And on the day of judgment, when they will be raised with their limbs, etc., missing, and that will be evidence of their sacrifice. Similarly, also, if we consider organ donation to be a good thing, and you see your kidney missing or other thing missing, then maybe that is something that you can present to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I did this as a good deed, and so therefore accept this as in mizan al-amal, in my balance of good deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has the ability to bring that out of dust again, create that for us again. We will only know when we get there on the day of judgment. Just as the shuhada and the martyrs will rise on the day of judgment, similarly also these people will also.
Well, I have a bit more philosophical question to follow up on that one. And that is, if I enter paradise, and I hope we all do, inshallah.
When you, inshallah.
We all do, inshallah. In the paradise, why would I need a kidney? Why would I need a liver? I don't need to secrete anything out of my body. The food that I'll be eating will be pure. There'll be no digestive problems. Would I really need those organs in paradise? Mufti Zubair?
Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a body and will give you an existence, and whether that is the exact same existence on the earth or not, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows.
To equate the life of the world and see the necessity of my kidney and liver in paradise, I think it's a reductionist idea where people are reducing my existence in paradise like the life of my life on this earth. And I find that rather illogical. If I'm going to paradise to enjoy eternal pleasure, food without digestive problems, drinks without getting ever intoxicated, I'm pretty certain my earthly liver and my earthly kidney would not be needed. And even if I did have them, they won't be able to cope with the heavenly pleasure. So they'll have to be replaced anyway. Now, this is, of course, a philosophical discussion. This is not for definite.
If you recall, this was an argument that some of the non-believers said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about these bones that will turn to dust, etc., and will they be brought to life? And Allah Ta'ala, He said, قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. So it's not difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might be something that we can't imagine, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not difficult for Him. Absolutely. And even when somebody is buried into the ground, what happens? That person is reduced to basic salts. And that becomes the food of all sorts of animals and creatures and goes all over the place. You don't stay in the grave, you become nothing. And you become to dust, and you become part of the soil, or animals eat you, excrete you, etc. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring all that back together again. So that organ, that's not such a difficult issue.
Absolutely. Thank you. Over to you, medically. Medical question.
I've got a philosophical medical thing.
Please, go ahead.
I think everything is intention. I'm not a religious scholar, but I do read Quran, and for the last 15, 20 years I've been reading in Bangla and English because I wanted to understand the meaning. And I read an ayat in Surah Maida that if you save someone's life, that means you are saving the whole mankind, and if you kill someone, as if you are killing the whole. So I think it's the intention. I mean, there are some words, I mean, our other guest will be able to say, there are some words in Quran, nobody knows the meaning, only Allah knows. So everything is, we have very limited knowledge, because when someone was arguing with me that, Hazrat Maryam about his birth, and they said it can't be. How can you have a child? But because this is science. I mean, there are some plants, male or female, suddenly they change, and the part of that becomes other gender, and then they produce fruits. So if that is called parthenogenesis, if that can happen in a plant, that can happen in human being. This is the Quran is a big science. The more I read, I think it's science. And main thing is the intention. And there's, as I said, I'm not a religious scholar, but as more I'm reading, I know that Allah knows everything, what is in my heart. So I think intention is most important. If you think that you are going to help someone, intention is the most important thing.
Fair enough, thank you. Let's go to the next question, which has also been raised, but it's a myth, I call it, which is to do with if I take somebody's organ, it's like me desecrating their body. And desecration of body is not allowed according to Islam. Somebody raised a question also saying, in the same light, would post-mortem be considered a desecration? I don't want to go into post-mortem conversation, but it is related in the sense of desecration of body. Now, asking you, Dr. Zaki, is taking out an organ equivalent to desecration of the body?
They do it in a very honorable way. They take care of, I mean, what is your faith? They value your faith. And it's not like haphazard incision. It's like a one incision here and two incision here, and then you take, and then they stitch it back.
It's done in a very systematic, respectful.
Oh, very much so, very much so. It's a very system. It's not. We treat it like the doctors. They treat it like a living human being. It's not that you will not lose your dignity or anything.
Okay. Now over to you, Mufti Zubair. So there is a saying of the Prophet ﷺ, people quote about the breaking of the bones of the dead body, and they say desecration of body therefore is not allowed, and taking out an organ, even if it's the person who has passed away, and within that particular period organs are taken, it is still desecration of the body. And somebody has raised that question about post-mortem. What do you say to that?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Firstly, the word desecration is an English word. The Arabic word is mutla. Okay, and Rasulullah sallallahu it's reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam naha anil mutla, he prohibited mutla. Now the question is, what is this mutla? Okay, and mutla means, comes from mathal, where you make the disfigurement, you make it an example. Okay, so it is a punitive excision of the nose, the ears, the genitalia, or other limbs. Okay, it's done with punitive intent. Okay, and all the hadiths that prohibit that mutla is normatively prohibited, is all in the context of war and mutual hostilities. Okay, and then there is a discussion amongst the jurists as to whether this is haram or just makruh. Okay, with both opinions, and whether it's always haram or makruh, or whether sometimes it can be justified. And according to the majority, mutla is normally prohibited, but it can be allowed, is allowed when it achieves an interest or a higher objective, such as victory in warfare. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he prohibited mutla, this was on normal sense, but where it will cause you to win the war, it was allowed. Or for example, in qisas, somebody has mutilated one person, then as a requital, as qisas, that person is also, a retaliation is taken against that person as well. So therefore also it is allowed. When we come to transplantation, there is no punitive intent. We are not trying to punish someone. Rather, it is based on what I want to do, be a good human being. It's based on altruism and beneficence, to benefit other people. So the intent is totally different. So it is not desecration. It is not mutla in how mutla is defined.
And
when it comes to the hadith.
Yes, please go ahead.
When it comes to the hadith of breaking the bone of a dead person is like the breaking the bones of a live person. كسر عظم الميت ككسره حيا أي في الإثم. It is like that in sin. Now, this is related to an incident when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with some of his companions, were around a grave and they were digging a grave, and they came upon a bone, right? And they came upon a bone which was either a shin, it was a long bone, either an arm from the arm or the shin. And one Sahabi set about to break it, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stopped him and said, "Don't do that. Breaking the dead bones of the dead person is like breaking the bones of a live person." And what that meant was, it's not that the person feels pain, is that just as the live person deserves respect, the dead also deserve respect as well. And so Rasulullah simply said, okay, move the bones to one side. So now, this, for me, this hadith doesn't prove that it is prohibited to do organ transplantation, because this is about ism, this is about denigration, this is about disrespect, whereas organ donation and transplantation is not about disrespect, it's about beneficence, it's about altruism.
It's about saving lives. I think that's a very clear example. And also in the ancient days, there was a bad practice amongst some of the Arabs, or still it does exist in some of the no man's land, where grave digging and then stealing the ornaments and jewelry with which some of the bodies have been buried, especially within the non-Muslim society, is very prevalent and in certain areas of the world. Again, a person may enter the grave, find a dead body with jewelry, and attempt to mutilate the body or sever bodies to be able to take off the jewelry. All of that would be with the intention of degrading, as well as to steal and to rob. All of those would be clearly prohibited. Of course, this is not the same thing as organ transplantation, and I think it's very important for our community to be absolutely clear. Organ transplantation does not come with the intention of harming or hurting the body or intentionally denigrating it. And Mufti Zubair's point is very, very important, and I think we need to reiterate it. And that is, when a person is dead, they're dead. They don't feel pain after death from this world. The body will not feel pain from you and me after they've died. If Allah inflicts pain on the body in the grave when it is reunited with the soul, that's a very different matter. I have no power to inflict any pain on the dead because the person is dead. This is an absolutely important point that we learned from Mufti Zubair's intervention a few seconds ago, where he says it's important to understand it is about respecting and honoring the dead. It is not about them feeling the pain. This is a massive misconception amongst our communities, Asian communities especially. Dr. Zaki, you probably will come across this. When you go to graveyards and you're lowering the body, people shout, "Oh, don't, the body will feel pain."
Yeah.
I say to people, yes, please calm down, do it nicely and respectfully, but don't blurt out this rubbish, and that is the body will feel pain. Body doesn't feel pain. Carry on.
Yeah, what I was trying to say that, medical science, in the first year we study anatomy. So we study the bones. It's a dead person's bone. So we collect that. But that is the intention. I mean, intention is good because that is for study, that's for research. If we didn't study anatomy, then you didn't have this modern medical science today. And another thing is, that's one question with me for a long time. Some people say that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent you in this world, He wants you to go back as how He sent it.
Intact.
Intact, yeah. But tell me one thing, I pierced my ear and my nose, that's for beauty. That's not to save someone's life. But this is not the same way I came in this world. So if we do it for wearing jewelry, how can we not save someone's life?
Or circumcision for boys. Let's take a question. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Ajmal, and to your respective guests and all the viewers listening.
Thank you very much. What would you like to say?
I've just tuned in, and mashallah, you do some very mashallah interesting discussions. Alhamdulillah, I was just looking at this Islamically, and like you, mashallah, you're very knowledgeable. Is this organ donation just like blood transfusion? Is it like an act of charity and an act of sadaqah jariyah?
Very good point, and I think we need to address that. Let's go to Mufti Zubair. Is organ donation considered an act of charity, or could it be considered ad sadaqah jariyah? That's the question from the caller. I've just passed it on to you verbatim.
Okay. If you consider donation to be a good thing. Then by donating an organ that you are giving somebody the benefit of a life or the benefit of a function of a vital function, then of course there is reward in that, because you are helping someone. So if you consider it to be permissible, then yes. Is it sadaqah jariyah? Sadaqah jariyah is a perpetual reward. That's something that continues and continues and continues. It may not be sadaqah jariyah, but it is a sadaqah. A sadaqah jariyah is one that continues until the judgment. Whereas you give an organ, for example, a kidney to someone that could die tomorrow and they've died, it's not continued. So it's not a jariyah as such, but it is a sadaqah.
It could be limited jariyah for as long as they've lived.
Sadaqah is sadaqah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I please come back to your previous point?
Yes.
On the posthumous, which in my fatwa I've called posthumous pain perception. And this was when I wrote the fatwa. Somebody, a layperson, said to me, "Well, what about the pain you feel at the, when you die and they take your organs?" And I said, "Oh my God, okay." Now this is something that I have grown with, an understanding that I have grown with all my life. I've never questioned, and I thought, okay, how do I answer this? Where am I going to find this one? It's not a physical pain, we know that, but is it a spiritual pain, etc.? So, what? When I looked into this, I found that there's no clear and reliable textual evidence to say that the deceased perceives pain of any kind due to being handled or treated inappropriately. There's no evidence for this. What I found, though, in all four Sunni, legal manuals, all the books of the fuqaha, is that they state, particularly in the Hanafi school, explicitly that the deceased does not feel pain due to third-party assault or intervention. And I was very surprised by this. And then it goes on to discuss, well, what about the punishment in the grave, which you said? And they said the settled position is that the body, whether it is whole or dismembered, or even broken down into simple organic matter, as I mentioned earlier, is given sufficient life to allow it to perceive pain, even if the exact nature of what this life is a matter of dispute. But this is mentioned in the books of the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis as well. And so I found something totally opposite to what is generally believed amongst the community, even amongst scholars as well.
I think this belief of body feeling the pain comes from other religious traditions and cultures, especially the one majority of our families have come from within the Asian subcontinent. So I'm not surprised that that's a popular belief. The contrary is Islamic, which is that it doesn't feel the pain. Very clear. Thank you very much. Well, let's move on to the last of the myths, and that is, on the Day of Judgment, if I do rise without organs, will Allah not hold me accountable for having betrayed his trust? My body was an amana to me. All parts of my body is an organ. Every organ of my body is an amana to me. And if I have betrayed it, would I not be held accountable for betrayal of the trust Allah had given? Mufti Zubair, how do you answer that?
Okay. This particular question, some who argue against organ transplantation, they argue that we don't own our bodies and it is a trust, okay? And it's not our property, and we cannot sell it, we cannot gift it. What you don't own, you can't gift, etc. And sometimes they will present something that what you cannot sell is a legal maxim. What you cannot sell, you cannot gift, okay? Firstly, my response to that is that it's not a universally accepted legal maxims. Secondly, legal maxims are not binding principles in themselves, but rather just indicate recurring themes in the body of the text. Okay, let's look at this. That the majority of the Maliki school, the Shafi school, and the majority in the Hanbali school, they allow the sale of breast milk, expressed breast milk. They allow the sale of that. So if you are saying if you can't sell it, you can't gift it, well, the majority of schools allow the selling of milk. So
you better clarify this. Can you pick up breast milk from the supermarket?
That's a separate discussion of how you do it.
I know, but what I'm saying is you said it allows it. It better make one sentence to clarify that if you do sell it, you should know who you have sold to and who your breast milk mother is.
Who the child is, it goes to, should be known. Because it creates a kinship. It creates
it needs to be noted, because I'm a product of that particular culture. My grandmother breastfed myself, her own daughter, and my uncle's son. So with three of us was breastfed by my grandmother, and it's noted very clearly in documents. So please, but let's finish off that discussion because we're running out of time.
Okay, so the idea that we don't own our bodies and it's a trust and a manner, I think focusing on not owning our bodies actually misplaced. Why? Because just because you own something doesn't give you absolute right to do with it what you want. For example, we own property wealth. We can't spend it in a haram way.
Yes.
So owning something doesn't give you absolute right. Similarly, also, just being a steward of something doesn't mean you can't dispose of that thing either. Okay? And so the question is, our bodies that we have, they have both an individual right and both haqq of abd and haqq of Allah as well. And the haqq of Allah is where there is public interest. Allah doesn't need anything. When we say rights of Allah, is where there is general public interest. So the question is, we are able to do with our bodies what we want until we don't conflict with the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this area is what is in public interest. So the question is, organ transplantation and donation, is that in public interest or not? If it is in public interest, then I should be able to donate. I should be able to forgo my right. I am not transgressing on the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's right is what is in the public interest. And so therefore, I should be able to donate. So for me, that is actually a fallacious discussion.
Okay, thank you. Very, very clear. So you will not be held accountable for it because it isn't a accountable paradigm on the Day of Judgment. This is not a question that would be raised. I've got a call, I think last call of the night, and then we'll finish. Hello, salam alaikum, caller.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Masroor bhai.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. What would you like to say?
Very quickly, how the Mufti... Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. How the Mufti has explained and regarding the fatwa. Perhaps, as we know, currently everyone has to opt out of organ donation, which means does the Mufti have any sort of liaison with the agencies who are currently facilitating transplantation after people die, and perhaps giving them some sort of guidance from the Islamic perspective?
Yes,
so that
I can answer that for you. I can answer that for you because we've run out of time. Mufti has been very much associated with and has been working very closely with the NHS and various health bodies up and down the country to advise them. His fatwa was written at the back of an approach made by the NHS when it came to organ transplantation. He went on a road trip. I accompanied some of those events myself. So Mufti's advice has been very clearly read and heeded, and the documents have been written at the back of it. I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'm going to say a massive thank you to Dr. Zaki for your time, Mufti Zubair for your amazing time and contribution. We've run out of time, so I'm going to have to finish the program, except to say to everybody, don't opt out. Please stay in and be a donor. We need more organ donors, not just those who receive organs. Muslims are quick in taking organs, but very few of you are on the list. Please do not opt out. Anyone who sends you that nonsensical message to opt out, they're just spreading rubbish. As far as we're concerned, based on great number of scholars and muftis across the country and the globe, we've come to a conclusion, and that is we should be doing organ transplantation as well as donation because it is in the public interest to do so. May Allah bless you all. May Allah protect us all. Until next time, from myself, my guests and my team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.